So you may notice that our text is kind of flat compared to the reference photo, and that's because our text is missing a drop shadow. Now, a drop shadow is something that adds more depth to the graphic, and I would say that the more depth there is in a graphic, the better it is. So depth in the background, depth with the text, depth with how the text is layered on top of the cutout. All these things create depth, and I think this creates a more enticing and attractive thumbnail. So keep that in mind as you create depth as much as you can, but don't overdo it. So in order to do that, I'm gonna select, holding down Shift, select, and now go to Effect and Stylize Drop Shadow. Now, as you adjust these numbers right here, I would encourage you to remember not to press enter after you finish adjusting a number. Just click on a separate space, because it's going to it's going to completely close this window, and now you're going to have a drop shadow that is set in place. So if you want to change this number to, let's say, 65, don't press enter, just click. And make sure you also have this selected so that you can see the changes that you're making. I want to have the drop shadow be quite visible, but not too visible. So I am going to have this at 55 actually. And you can also adjust how much of it you see. As I increase the offset, you're seeing more of it kind of moving away from the text itself. So if you think that looks good, you can try it out. I think that's a bit too excessive, so I'm going to bring it down back to 7. I don't want it to be, too obvious. I just wanted to add something subtle to it. Honestly, I think 10 would be a great number. And yeah, also going to put this at 10 as well. And then, yes, I'm going to increase the blur by 10 and just see how that looks. So obviously play around with it and see how it looks to you. For me, I think I'm going to drop it back down to 5. Yes, that looks much better to me. So yeah, once you add this drop shadow in, that's pretty much all we have to do for this thumbnail. If you were to create a thumbnail where you wanted to add depth by creating a more 3D look to your text, let me show you how to do that. So I'm going to remove this drop shadow for a moment, and I'm going to take this one right here. I'm going to hold down Alt, duplicate the layer. And now let's say I wanted to make this bottom layer the same color as this right here. I'm going to select this. And the reason that I am not using the eyedropper tool here is because if I was to do that, it would completely change the size. It would match the size to this text right here. When you are just selecting a color from, an object or an element on a background, it's not going to change anything but the color. But if you go text to text, it's going to change the size of the text as well. So that's why instead of doing that, I'm just going to take the hex code, copy it, go to this one right here, paste it. Okay. And now I want this to actually be, you can see that I'm creating a 3D effect by just layering it on top of each other. But I want this yellow layer to be on the bottom. So what I'm going to do is to select it, go back to layers here, and you can see the one that I've selected by this blue square right here. So I'm going to actually drop it below the white layer, and now it's beneath it. If you try and click it here, it's going to be very hard to select because it's only selecting the white layer. So if you want to select it, specifically, just go here, and now it's selected, and now I can use my arrow keys to make whatever adjustments I want to make. If I wanted to, have more of a 3D look on the left side, I can push it this way. If I wanted to have a more 3D look on the right side, I can use my right arrow key to push it out. Obviously, there's a point where it no longer looks 3D, so you don't want to pass that point. You want to, obviously have it look 3D, but not, to the point where it looks just wrong. So yeah, this is another way to add depth. Obviously, we're not doing this for this graphic, but I wanted to show you how I do it personally. Okay, so now we're just making our final adjustments to this graphic. Very slight adjustments. I want to make this slightly bigger. I want to make sure that this T is aligned with the G and the T here. So I'm just going to use my arrow key to make a very slight adjustment. And I think that's fairly close enough. I'm going to zoom out to get a better look at it. I think everything needs to be moved down slightly. So I'm just going to highlight all of them and then press the down arrow key, slight adjustments. Yeah, so we definitely want our title to fill in a lot of the space, because imagine if you're scrolling on YouTube, the bigger the text, the easier it is to read it and see it as you're, scrolling through different thumbnails on YouTube. So we want our thumbnails to be eye-catching. Honestly, we could make it a little bit bigger if we wanted to fill in that left-hand space more. We're going to import our logo right here, and we just want to put it in the top right corner. So pull down Shift again, make it a decent size. It doesn't need to be too large. I'm going to zoom in like this, and I'm going to actually layer it. For some reason, I feel like it makes it pop more. I don't know if it actually does, but yeah, I feel like it pops more when you layer it. And now our thumbnail is pretty much ready to be exported. And in order to do that, we are going to unlock the background, because we need to select every single thing on this graphic. And now, once we've selected everything, we can also check here to make sure we did. Everything is blue, so we know we selected everything. We're going to go to File, Export Selection, and yeah, you can just call it whatever you want to call it. I'll just leave it as Asset 1. Make sure it's being exported to the right folder, and go ahead and export. All right, so the next step is actually going to be to resize the thumbnail. We exported it as 1920 by 1080, but the actual dimensions for YouTube is 1280 by 720. So the reason that we did that is because 1920 by 1080 is actually higher quality. And when you take something that is higher quality and you kind of make it fit into smaller dimensions, you're keeping that higher quality in a smaller format. Whereas if we started with 1280 by 720, we're keeping that lower quality version. Hopefully that made sense. Just go ahead and open up Adobe Express, and a link to this will be in your practice document, and you should be able to just press upload photo and find your graphic in the folder that you uploaded it to. Okay, so once your graphic has loaded in, what you want to do is to find the correct aspect ratio, and an easy way to do that is to just press YouTube, select thumbnail, and yeah, it's basically shaped it for you. You can also see that it's also compressed the size. So yeah, you can just go ahead and download this, and we have one final step to do. All right, once you've downloaded your thumbnail, the compressed version, the downsized version, you can now go to Thumbs Up TV. And this is a way to basically see what your thumbnail would look like on YouTube in different formats. So we're going to go ahead and import it. Now we should be able to see what it looks like on a web browser, on a home small, sidebar, channel page small, history, watch later, mobile. So we want to make sure this is very important, because things may look different when you have them on a YouTube web page. So it's important to look at it here to make sure everything still looks nice. It looks clean. Make sure that, the depth is enough, the drop shadow is enough, or if you need to add more. So yeah, this is the final step. And once you have done this, you can then just go ahead and upload this to the same folder where you downloaded all the documents that you used for this assignment, and just let me know, and I can review it for you, and we can move on to the next assignment.